Today, I am going to tell you about a new way of looking at the Verdi's opera La Traviata. That I have been reading his score for many, many years, and after a long studying on it, I came up with something that really bothered me, something it doesn't make quite sense to me. So I had to dig into deeper. Now, some people may already know, but the Verdi's opera, La Traviata, The Lady of Camellias, was based on a novel written by Alexandre Dumas II, who actually had a relationship with a particular very famous courtesan in Paris, whose name was Alphonsine Plessis. And as it turned out, the truth is hidden in the score in such a way that people would not dig it out unless they realize that Alphonsine was a real person who motivated, interested those people, and also had a special meaning to Verdi himself. He has a watercolor painting of Alphonsine. She was born 1824 under the very difficult family. Now, her father, Marin Duplessis, was a very naughty, wild, drunk, violent man who forced his wife, Marie, to work and drink all the earning just for his own drinking. And he was being afraid of by even the village people because he was so violent, uncontrollable. Now there's a real event that on January, Marin was, as usual, drinking in a cold winter night, and he was just burning wood in the fireplace, and his wife, Marie, commented, "Dear, we don't have money. We can't use that much wood to burn now." But being commented, the husband gets furious, and okay, if we don't have the wood, we have something else to burn, and he grabbed his wife and pushed her into the burning fireplace. And this really happened. And fortunately, 23-year-old postman passed by in front of the house, heard a scream, and jumped into the house and saved her out of the fireplace. So she didn't die. But his wife and his daughters realized that if they stayed with this father, they would all be killed. So they had to escape from him, hiding themselves. That was the only way to survive. Well, it was a rough life. Now, the particular person, this painting, Alphonsine Plessis, was 9 years old by then, and she was kept in mother's relative's house for 2 years. But it's a poor sort of farm country, and Alphonsine was eventually told, look, you can stay here and sleep, but we just cannot afford to give you food. So Alphonsine had to go outside to find the food, some way to eat something. Some of the neighbor spotted her and realized what have happened. And the neighbors came to her father, Marin, and said, what kind of human are you? Your daughter is starving to death. Now, even the violent Marin could not survive if everybody in the village hated him. So he took her back. But then that means he have to find some more food. So, shortly after, he took Alphonsine, only 11 years old by then, to a single unmarried shoemaker in a far village as the sex slave, so to speak, to him. And the father was to collect the money every weekend for her services. Now, the villagers soon recognized, why is there a girl in this man's house? Why is she screaming at night? And eventually the police was called. And then the girl was returned to her father, a violent man. Now, after this, Marine, not happy to have her, so that she was raped by her own father repeatedly, forced to work in the laundry, and all those things were soon discovered in the villagers. Again, the police was called in. And now, the father had no other way to do something about her welfare. So she was taken to their relative's house in Paris. But she could not really stay there very long. So she had to start a life of prostitute at her age of 14. What a rough life she had to go through. Well, I'm very sorry for her, but there are some good people around, and Alphonsine was discovered by some rich restaurateur who tried to give her the lodging and those. But this story sort of spread out to the high society in Paris. And then many people discover that this girl, Alphonsine, is such a beautiful, very, very nice girl. So she soon became the most highly regarded prostitute in Paris. Well, it's better than other way, and she was there, but in the meantime, very powerful figure, Charles de Monet, relative of Napoleon Bonaparte, became her guardian, who provided outstanding tutors for her for 8 months. Amazing thing is, Alphonsine, after being taught of manners, language, writing, cultures, music and everything from those great, great tutors, became a very, very elegant young lady who would be hard to beat by even the nobleman's daughters. And she had a baby with Charles, a baby boy, and the boy was brought to the father, Monet, but he died in 35 days, sadly. The boy was buried in Paris, and then Alphonsine became acquainted with other noblemen, and Count Périgueux wanted to marry her, and they did get married. 1846, February the 21st, in London. By then she was 22 years old, but next year she passed away from consumption. Now, I should tell you a bit more. The facts which I have. Here's a passport of Alphonsine, which shows you that this is a real person. And Alphonsine was drawn on this picture attending the opera performance, and also is known that Giuseppe Verdi was in Paris around that time. Verdi was 11 years older than Alphonsine by then. So there's good chance that Giuseppe Verdi would have heard about her or even met her during his visit in Paris. Now, I did all sorts of searches about the Alphonsine. And the facts I'm talking about came from this biography by René Weiss, professor. This is by far the best autograph or the history about Alphonsine, as far as I know. Very reliable. I had contacted with the professor, and he is always giving me a great advice. I visited the last residence where she was living in 11 Madeleine in Paris, where it is now owned by a bank. And I also visited her grave. Now, commonly, that Alphonsine has been known as Marie du Plessis, which is a name she gained later, indicating like a noble person's family type name. But in the grave, her name is Alphonsine Plessis. One thing which made me somewhat happy was that even over 170 years after her death, there were beautiful flowers on her grave, which means there are people who liked her, loved her, and cared about her. That's kind of comforting. I've got some more information that when I visited Paris, I was lucky to have found a great book. As I said, that the author of the novel, The Lady with Camellias, the Alexandre Dumas II, who had relationship with her for about a year, have written a poem at the right after her death, 1847. And the poem is in this book, which was published, only 14 copies. And this is a book with Dumas II's handwriting letter to his friend. And the poem tells you very realistic story about her near death. There are many informations available. For example, this is the collection of sort of receipts on what she had paid for flowers and all those. Such a book also does exist. I do have one. Very limited books. And I have gone through this book, which is Alain de Chartres, which tells you the prostitution in 19th century Paris. Very interesting book itself. I do have original French version. And after all those, I've got a bit more detail, closer feeling towards her, her life, her feelings. But as I said at the beginning, that there are quite a few places I couldn't quite understand it. Now gets into the music itself now. Now, in the La Traviata, opera Traviata, on the first act, there was a scene that young man, Alfredo, pours out his love to Violetta. And this was really something totally new for her, because the men who comes to her are rich, high-class people who only care about her body. But she was cared about her health, her mind. So after the party, when everybody left, Alphonsine, or in a real opera role, Violetta, was very confused. I mean, this is something she never have experienced, real love. What is it? So, being alone, there's a scene starting. Violetta says, "Estrano," which means it's strange. Once more, "Estrano," but the score tells you more detail. If you read the score carefully, the first estrano is eighths, estrano, and then you have the rest. And the second E is half the length of the first E, 16th. So this tells you a very vivid presentation of her mind here. How it should have been, it says, she is confused and says, "Estrano," it's strange. And then suddenly she realized what this means. Estrano. She suddenly finds this is a real love. She is encountering the real life for the first time in her life. So Verdi has written that part exactly that way. And if you listen to any performances, which I have about 20 of them, almost everyone totally neglect this part. So that the second, 16th is sung like eighths, the same as this. It's just a repetition. Estrano, estrano. This is really a rape of Verdi's opera. I mean, if you are decent musicians, you shouldn't do this. You have to really try to understand what the score says. That's your responsibility as a performer. But sadly, just so many of them. Now, I might add a bit more about this opera. There'll be a Violetta's aria. At the first half says, "Oh my God, I've got a love. This is something I've dreamed of," and everything. It's just she is high. But at the middle of the opera, she suddenly stops there and said, "My God, this cannot be true. This is ridiculous. This is not true." She says, "Well, I mean, this is a human desert, the palace. I live here. It is a torture to be here, and all what you can do is drink and marry and enjoy life, have fun. What else can you do here?" My God, this is really outstanding presentation from the Verdi. Actually, Verdi, I believe, wanted to tell the audience that here's a real human with beautiful mind, sacrificed, tortured all through her life, and neglected by most. Well, she's a prostitute. So what? She's a human here. Now, I respect Verdi because he is a man of goodwill. He loves to be fair and just. So he even became the member of parliament, and he tried to tell people that we have to be humans, we have to love others, we have to respect each other. And all through his life, he did this. In reality, he prepared a great place for the retired, poor musicians. All of his money was spent to build this special house, for example. So, here, when we encounter with this opera, we have to respect Giuseppe Verdi, who wanted to tell you the story which you should remember. Here are humans, they are living, they are suffering. So this is, in a way, not an entertainment. This is a documentary to appeal to you. So please, keep in mind that you just don't consume this. Here's a Verdi who is trying to reach your mind. That's my message to you. Thank you for listening.